the chains of defiance. The hall was filled with shadows, torches burning low on the cracked stone walls. The air smelled of rust, smoke, and fear. In the center, she stood chained, her wrists bound in heavy iron cuffs. Her silver eyes glared at everyone who looked at her. She was not weak. She was not broken. She was an alien warrior who once carried honor. Her people had fallen, their banners torn, their cries silenced, and now she was here, on display before a crowd of strangers. Humans stood among them too, watching, silent, some with pity, some with curiosity. But when the human stepped closer, she spat words at him like fire. "I'll never be your pet," she swore. Her voice echoed across the stone chamber, harsh, strong, filled with rage. She pulled at her chains even though the iron bit into her wrists. Blood ran, but she didn't care. The human didn't answer. He was tall, broad-shouldered, his face unreadable. His eyes did not shine with cruelty like others. Instead, they were calm, steady, as if he had already made his choice. The crowd laughed at her defiance. Some shouted, "Break her spirit." Others whispered, "She will kneel like the rest." But the human said nothing. He only looked at her, his silence heavier than their jeers. She hated that silence. It made her feel seen. It made her feel weak. She shouted again, louder this time. "You may chain me, you may starve me, but I will never bow." Her body shook, not from fear, but from fury. The human finally moved. His boots echoed against the stone as he walked toward her. She stiffened, ready for a blow, ready for pain. But instead, he knelt. His hand reached for the iron cuffs. The crowd gasped. With one twist, the chain lock broke. The sound of falling iron rang through the chamber. Her arms dropped free, numb from the weight that had held them. She stumbled, confusion flashing in her silver eyes. He had freed her. The room erupted in shouts. "What are you doing?"
"She will escape. She'll kill you." But the human did not listen. He stood tall, facing them all. His voice finally broke the silence, calm and steady. "She is not my pet," he said. "She will never be." The alien girl's breath caught in her throat.
She stared at him, shocked. Her lips parted, but no words came out. No master had ever freed a slave. No conqueror had ever released his prize. Was it a trick? Was it another game to humiliate her? Her pride forced her to stand straight, to glare, once more, but inside, for the first time in years, a tiny spark of hope flickered. She whispered, almost too quiet for anyone to hear. "Why?" The human didn't answer. He simply turned his back to her, as if daring her to strike, as if trusting her not to. The chains lay at her feet like dead snakes, symbols of her prison, symbols of her defiance. The crowd began to disperse, murmuring. In disbelief, some laughed, saying he was a fool. Others muttered that he would regret it, but none dared stop him. The human walked away, and after a long hesitation, she followed. Every step was heavy. Her pride screamed at her to turn back, to run, to fight. But another voice whispered deep inside, telling her this was different, telling her she had just seen something impossible. That night, she sat alone in a corner of his shelter, food placed before her untouched. He didn't force her to eat. He didn't command her. He simply let her be. Her hands shook as she touched the warm bread. Her mind screamed, "Don't accept it, don't show weakness." But her stomach ached. Her pride and her hunger battled until her body betrayed her. She tore a piece of bread and ate slowly, angrily. The human sat across from her, silent still, watching the fire instead of her. It was unbearable. She wanted him to shout, to curse, to order her. Anything but this strange, calm patience. Finally, she snapped, her voice breaking the quiet. "Why don't you chain me again? Why don't you treat me like your pet?" Her eyes burned with tears she refused to let fall. The human turned his gaze toward her. His answer was simple, almost too soft. "Because you are not a pet." The words struck her harder than chains. They cut through her walls of rage and pride. She turned her face away, hiding her trembling lip. For the first time since her capture, her defiance did not feel like strength. It felt like a shield breaking, and she did not know if she wanted to rebuild it. The night stretched long, the fire burned low. Outside, the wind howled against the stone walls. But inside, silence wrapped around them both. Heavy, strange, uncertain. She swore she would never be his pet. And yet, a new fear crept into her heart. A fear she could not name. Because deep inside, she no longer knew if she wanted to keep her distance. The chains of iron were gone. But the chains of her heart had only begun to tremble. The silent shelter. The night after her chains fell was colder than she had expected. The alien girl sat in silence, her back pressed against the rough stone wall of the human's shelter. The room was small, built with care, wood and stone holding back the mountain winds. A single fire burned in the center, its crackling sound filling the quiet. She stared at the flames, but her mind was far away. Her wrists were raw from the chains, her pride still sharp in her chest. She could not understand what had happened. Why had the human freed her? Why had he spoken those words? "You are not a pet." Her people would never believe it. They had taught her that humans were cruel, that they broke spirits and bent them to their will. And yet this one had shattered the chains instead of tightening them. He sat across the fire, not looking at her. His broad frame leaned against the wall, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the flames. He didn't speak. He didn't move. He was calm, too calm, and it unsettled her. Food lay in front of her still, bread and dried meat untouched. Her hunger gnawed at her. But pride chained her stronger than iron ever did. She whispered to herself, "I will not eat." The human finally spoke, his voice low, steady. "Eat, or you will grow weak." She lifted her chin, meeting his gaze with defiance. "I am not your pet. I will not eat from your hand." He gave no anger, no command, only turned back to the fire. "Then starve," he said simply, as if it did not matter. Her chest tightened at his coldness. She had expected threats, punishment, the usual whip of masters, but his indifference hurt in a way she did not understand. It was as if her choice truly belonged to her. Hours passed. The fire sank lower. Her stomach growled so loud that it echoed. In the room, she bit her lip until she tasted blood. Her body begged for food, but her pride refused. Then came the sound, a distant howl beyond the stone walls, a predator's cry, long and sharp. Her body tensed. She knew that call. It belonged to hunters of the night, beasts that tracked weakness. She looked toward the human. He had not moved. His hand rested near a blade, his eyes still on the fire, calm as if he had heard the howl 100 times before. The sound came again, closer this time. Her heart quickened. She hated herself for glancing at him, for waiting to see if he would rise. She hated herself more when a flicker of relief filled her chest at the thought of his presence. The human stood finally, slow, unhurried. He reached for his weapon and moved toward the door. His voice was steady. "Stay inside," she almost shouted. "I am not afraid." But the words stuck. Her throat was dry. Instead, she watched as he stepped out into the night, the door closing behind him. Silence pressed heavy in the shelter. Her fingers curled into fists. Why did she care if he returned? Why did her chest ache with fear at the thought he might not? She was a warrior once. She did not need a human to fight for her. Yet when the night roared outside, metal clashing, beasts snarling, firelight flickering across the door, her body trembled. Minutes dragged like hours. Then at last, the door creaked open. The human stepped back in, calm as before. His blade dripped with dark blood. His clothes bore scratches, but his eyes still burned steady. He dropped the blade aside, sat again by the fire, and said nothing. She could not hold it. Any more her pride cracked, her hunger screamed, her fear still clung to her bones. She reached for the bread with shaking hands, tore a piece, and ate. Each bite burned her pride but warmed her chest. The human didn't look at her, didn't smirk, didn't remind her of her words. He only let her eat. Tears pricked her eyes. Hot and bitter, she whispered, her voice weak. "Why do you do this? Why free me? Why protect me? Why feed me?" His eyes met hers across the fire, steady and cold. "Because you are not my pet." The word struck her again, heavy and sharp. She looked down, unable to meet his gaze. The fire cracked, the wind howled, and in the silence she realized something terrifying. The chains on her wrists were gone, but the chains in her heart were starting to shake. Not with hate this time, but with something she could not yet name. That night she curled on the floor, close enough to feel the fire's warmth, far enough to keep her pride. But when she closed her eyes, the last thing she remembered was not fear, not hunger, not chains. It was the image of him standing outside, fighting the beasts of the dark while she watched from the safety of his shelter. And for the first time, she wondered if being near him was not weakness but survival. The first test. The dawn came slowly, spilling gray light into the human's shelter. The fire had burned low, only red embers glowing faintly. The alien girl sat awake, her arms wrapped around her knees. She had not slept much. Her mind was full of questions she could not answer. She glanced at him. The human slept against the wall, his weapon close at hand. His breathing was calm, steady. She hated the way that calmness unsettled her. He was not like the others, not like the masters she remembered. He was dangerous in another way, a way she could not understand. When he stirred awake, he said nothing. He rose, set wood on the fire, and began to prepare for the day. His movements were simple, efficient, as if he had done them countless times. She wanted to ask him why he had saved her, why he had fought the beasts, but her pride held her tongue. Hours passed in silence, until the sound came. Heavy footsteps outside, louder and louder, her sharp ears caught it first. She stiffened, her hand instinctively reaching for a weapon she no longer had. The human noticed too. His hand tightened on the blade at his side. The door burst open. Raiders, their armor clanked, their voices rough, their weapons glimmered in the weak daylight. There were 4 of them, faces twisted with hunger for blood and loot. Her heart pounded. Her first thought was to run, her second, to fight. But she had nothing, no weapon, no strength, only her voice. And for the first time she stayed silent. The human stepped forward, placing himself between her and the intruders. His voice was calm, cold. Leave. The raiders laughed. 1 man against 4? One sneered. Hand over the alien and your food and maybe we'll let you live. She felt fire burn inside her chest. They wanted to take her, chain her again. She whispered to herself, not again, never again. Her pride screamed to stand, to shout, but her body froze. The human didn't move aside. His stance widened, his blade flashing as he lifted it. She's under my protection, he said. His voice was low, dangerous. The raiders attacked, steel clashed. The room, filled with the sound of blades striking. Her breath caught as she watched him move. His strikes were precise, his steps sure. He fought not like a brute, but like a man who had survived many battles. One raider fell, blood staining the floor. Another lunged, but the human blocked, his blade biting deep. 2 remained, circling like wolves. Her fists clenched. She wanted to fight too, to stand beside him, but she could only watch, chained now not by iron, but by fear and helplessness. Then it happened. One raider slipped past his guard, his blade swinging toward her. She gasped. Too slow to move, the strike never came. The human stepped in front of her, the blade cutting into his arm. His blood spilled, red against stone. Her eyes widened. Her chest ached. He had taken the blow for her. He had chosen pain over letting her be harmed. Something inside her cracked, stronger than pride, deeper than rage. With a roar, the human finished the fight. His blade cut the last raider down. Silence filled the shelter, broken only by his heavy breathing. He leaned on the wall, his arm bleeding, his eyes still steady. You're safe, he said. She stared at him, words stuck in her throat. Safe. No one had ever bled to keep her safe. Not her people, not her masters, no one. Her pride crumbled, but not into shame this time, into something she could not name. Her voice shook as she whispered, Why protect me? Why not let them take me? He cleaned his blade slowly, his expression unreadable. Because you are not a pet, he said again. as if those words were all the reason he needed. Her heart raced, her body trembled. She wanted to scream, to demand more, but she had no strength left. Instead, she whispered, "I don't understand you." He didn't answer. He only bound his wound with cloth, then sat again by the fire, calm as if nothing had happened. She sat across from him, her hands shaking, her mind spinning. She remembered her vow. "I'll never be your pet." And yet here she was, alive only because he had placed himself in front of death for her. The silence grew heavy. The fire crackled, and for the first time, she felt not just defiance, not just confusion, but something dangerous. She was beginning to want to trust him. That night when she closed her eyes, she remembered the moment his blood fell on the stone floor. She remembered his voice, steady even in pain. "You're safe." And for the first time, she whispered to herself, "Maybe I am the breaking point." The days that followed were heavy with silence. The human's wound had closed, but the bandage on his arm was stained. His movements were slower now, though he hid it well. He carried wood, fixed the walls of the shelter, and hunted for food as if the pain meant nothing. The alien girl watched him every step, every breath. She wanted to ask if it hurt. She wanted to demand why he risked his life for her. But each time the words rose, her pride swallowed them. At night, when the fire burned low, she lay awake. Her thoughts battled inside her. Pride told her she owed him nothing. Pride told her she was strong enough alone. But her heart whispered, a truth she feared to admit. Without him, she would not have survived. Then came the storm. Dark clouds gathered across the mountains. Winds howled like angry spirits. Rain hammered the stone roof. The fire sputtered. Shadows danced along the walls. That night, her body betrayed her. A fever burned inside her veins. Her skin grew hot, her breath shallow. She shivered even as sweat covered her face. She tried to hide it, curling against the wall, but a soft cry slipped past her lips. The human turned. His eyes narrowed as he studied her shaking frame. He knelt beside her, placing his hand against her forehead. His touch was rough but careful, his voice calm. "You're burning up." She pushed his hand away weakly. "Leave me," she whispered. "I don't need your pity." He didn't listen. He wrapped a blanket around her trembling body, his voice firm. "You need warmth." She tried to rise, to argue, but her knees buckled. He caught her before she hit the ground. She hated the weakness, hated the way her body leaned into him without choice. Tears of fury filled her eyes. "Why won't you let me die?" She cried, her voice breaking. His arms tightened around her as he lifted her with ease. His voice steady even as rain pounded the roof. "Because you're worth saving." Her heart shook at those words. She wanted to scream, to claw at him, but her strength was gone. She pressed her face into his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. And for the first time, she didn't feel like a prisoner. She felt like someone being carried to safety. The storm grew worse. The roof leaked, water pooling on the floor. The human carried her outside through the rain across the muddy ground. She shivered violently in his arms, each step rough, each breath shallow. He moved through the darkness with determination, climbing the rocky path toward a hidden cave in the cliffs. The wind whipped at them, the rain stung their skin. Still, he didn't stop, not even when his wounded arm shook under the weight. Inside the cave, the air was dry. He laid her down gently on a bed of dry moss, then built a fire with trembling hands. The flames rose, filling the space with warmth. He sat close, his eyes never leaving her. Her pride fought one last time. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "You should have left me. I'm nothing to you. I'm not your—" She stopped, the word pet stuck in her throat, bitter as poison. The human leaned closer, his eyes steady. "You're not nothing," he said softly. "You're alive. And that's enough." Tears slipped from her. Eyes hot against her burning cheeks, she turned her face away. Ashamed of the weakness, ashamed of the strange comfort those words brought her. Hours passed. The fever raged. She drifted in and out of darkness. Each time she woke, he was there, feeding the fire, pressing cool cloth against her skin, never leaving. At dawn, her fever broke, her breathing steadied, her body weak but alive. She opened her eyes and found him still sitting beside her, exhaustion clear on his face. Her voice cracked, fragile as she whispered, "Why? Why do you stay?" "You owe me nothing. I've given you nothing, not even thanks." He met her gaze, and for the first time his calm eyes softened. "I don't need thanks," he said. "I need you to live." Her heart raced. Her pride crumbled. She turned her face into her hands, whispering so low he almost couldn't hear. "I don't understand you, human." But deep inside she was beginning to. For the first time in her life, someone had carried her without chains. Someone had fought for her. Without asking for obedience, someone had saved her without calling her a pet. And that broke her more than any chains ever could. The fever had left her body weak. Her muscles ached. Her steps were slow, but she was alive. Each breath she took inside the mountain cave was proof of that. She would not admit it aloud, but without the human, she would already be buried in the storm. He moved around the fire with quiet efficiency, drying his clothes, sharpening his blade, preparing food. Every motion was steady, purposeful. He spoke little, yet his silence said more than words. She sat watching him, her silver eyes tracing his movements, the memory of his arms lifting her, his voice telling her she was worth saving, haunted her. Her pride hated it. Her heart could not forget it. Days passed like this. The storm eased, the skies cleared. But danger never left the mountains, the human knew it. She could see it in the way he always kept his weapon close, in the way his eyes studied the shadows outside the cave. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the cliffs red, a sound broke the fragile peace. A growl, deep and guttural, rolled across the rocks. Her skin prickled. She knew that sound, a predator of the wild, stronger and deadlier than the beasts of the night before. The human rose instantly, his blade in hand, his face calm but alert. He glanced at her, his voice steady. "Stay behind me." Her pride burned. She wanted to protest, to shout that she didn't need his protection. But when the beast stepped into the fading light, her breath caught. It was massive, taller than both of them. Its skin scaled, its teeth glinting sharp, its eyes locked on them with hunger, saliva dripping from its jaws. Her knees shook. Fear surged in her chest. She had fought before, but never against such a monster. Her throat tightened, she whispered without meaning to. "No." The human stepped forward, planting himself between her and the beast, his stance wide, his blade reflecting the dying sun. The creature lunged. The ground shook with its weight. The human met it head on, his blade cutting across its scales. Sparks flew, but the beast did not fall. It roared, striking back with claws that carved stone. She screamed as he stumbled, the impact throwing him against the wall. His blade clattered to the ground. The beast roared again, its eyes glowing, moving closer, for the kill. Her heart stopped. Fear gripped her throat. She crawled toward him, her voice breaking. "Get up. Please, don't stop, don't leave me." Her pride was gone, her defiance shattered. In that moment, all she wanted was his strength, all she needed was him standing again. He rose slowly, blood dripping from his shoulder. His hand clenched the blade once more. His eyes never left the beast. "Stay back," he said, his voice calm despite the pain. The beast charged again. The cave shook. The human roared, striking with all his strength. His blade bit deep this time, slicing across the monster's throat. Dark blood spilled onto the rocks. The creature screamed, one last time before collapsing in a heap. Silence filled the cave, only broken by the sound of their heavy breathing. The human staggered, nearly falling. His blade slipped from his grasp. She rushed to him, catching his arm, her voice trembling. "Don't you dare fall! Don't you dare leave me!" He leaned against the wall, his chest rising and falling. His eyes met hers, calm even in exhaustion. "I told you," he whispered. "I won't stop." Her tears fell, hot and bitter. She pressed her forehead against his chest, her voice breaking. "I swore I'd never be your pet, but I can't lose you, I can't." His hand, rough and scarred, rested gently on her shoulder. He didn't call her weak. He didn't mock her desperation. His voice was steady. "You're not my pet. You're my equal." Those words cut deeper than any blade. They broke the last wall around her heart. She sobbed quietly, not from shame, but from the terrifying relief of knowing she was not alone. That night, as the fire burned high, she stayed close to him, not out of fear, but out of choice. The chains of pride were still there, but lighter now, cracked and trembling. And when she closed her eyes, she whispered the words she had never thought she would say, words carried on the quiet of the cave. "Stay with me, please." The human didn't answer, but his steady presence beside her was enough. For the first time, she wasn't fighting to keep her pride. She was fighting to keep him alive. The cave was quiet after the battle. The monster's body lay at the entrance, its blood soaking into the stone. The human had cleaned his blade and sat by the fire, his breathing heavy but steady. The alien girl stayed close, her eyes fixed on him. She had begged him to fight, begged him not to stop. The memory burned inside her chest. Her pride had always been her shield, but when death stood before them, that shield shattered. She realized she would rather lose her pride than lose him. Now, sitting in the warm glow of the fire, she felt the weight of silence pressing down. Her hands shook, her lips trembled. There was something she had carried for years, something that had carved her soul like a blade. And for the first time she wanted to speak it. Her voice was soft, almost swallowed by the fire's crackle. "You think I swore at you because you are human," she said slowly. "You think my words, 'I'll never be your pet,' were only for you." She looked down at her hands, scarred wrists trembling, but they were not. The human lifted his eyes to her, calm as always. He said nothing, only waited. She took a deep breath, her chest tight. "Before the humans came, my own people broke me." Her voice shook. "They called me weak, they made me kneel, they said I was unworthy of honor." She swallowed hard, her silver eyes glistening. "They chained me before you ever did." The fire popped, echoing in the cave. Her words spilled faster, sharper. "When I said I would never be a pet, it was not just to you. It was to the world, to fate, to everyone who had ever tried to take my spirit." Her voice cracked. "I could not let anyone see how broken I truly was." The human's face remained steady, but his eyes softened slightly. His silence felt like listening, not judgment. Tears slipped down her cheeks, hot and bitter. She pressed her palms against her face, ashamed. "I hated you because I thought you would be the same. Another chain, another master, another voice calling me worthless." She shook her head, whispering, "But you broke the chains instead. You bled to protect me instead." Her chest ached as if her heart itself was breaking open. She whispered, through her tears, "I don't understand you. I don't understand why you stay, why you fight, why you look at me as if I am more." The human leaned forward, his voice low but firm. "Because you are more." She froze, the words striking deeper than any blade. Her eyes met his, and in them, she saw no cruelty, no desire to own, only truth, simple and steady. Her lips trembled. "I don't deserve that." His reply was calm but strong. "You deserve to live. You deserve to stand free." The firelight danced across his face. The shadows made his presence feel larger, stronger. She studied him with new eyes, not as captor, not as stranger, but as something she could not yet name. Silence stretched between them, but it was not the silence of mistrust anymore. It was the silence of truths too heavy for words. "Finally," she whispered, her voice fragile but firm. "If you wanted, I would have followed you as a prisoner. If you forced me, I would have hated you forever, but now," she hesitated, the words shaking on her tongue, "I follow because I want to." The human gave no smile, no smirk. His voice was the same steady tone. "Then walk beside me, not behind." Her chest tightened. Her pride, once a mountain, now felt like sand slipping through her fingers. She bowed her head, not in submission, but in something different, something closer to respect. The night stretched on. The storm outside had passed. The world was quiet except for the crackle of fire and the steady sound of his breathing. For the first time, she slept without fear. Her dreams were not of chains or shadows, but of walking beside him under an open sky. When dawn came, light spilling into the cave, she stood taller. Her body was still weak, but her spirit no longer. Hid behind pride alone, she looked at him and whispered, "I am not your pet. I am not your prisoner. I am me." The human nodded once, his calm eyes steady on hers. "That is enough." And in that moment she understood something terrifying, something beautiful. The chains of her past had not just been broken, her heart itself had been freed. The mountains were quiet after the storm. The air was fresh, carrying the scent of wet earth and pine. The alien girl and the human walked side by side down a narrow trail. Her steps were still slow from weakness, but she held her head high, her silver eyes no longer full of defiance alone, but of something deeper, resolve, the days of chains, of calling herself strong while secretly broken, felt far away. She was not healed, not yet, but the cracks in her heart no longer frightened. She carried them like scars, and by her side walked the man who had turned those scars into something more than shame. But peace never lasted long in this world. By the fourth day, they reached a valley where broken banners swayed in the wind, symbols of the war that had destroyed her people. Soldiers still lingered there, mercenaries, slavers, hunters, and at their head stood a man she recognized. Her chest tightened. The commander, tall and cruel, the one who had chained her first. His armor gleamed, his smile sharp, his eyes landed on her, and he laughed. "So this is where you've been hiding," he sneered. The proud alien warrior, walking beside a human like a tamed beast, her, blood boiled, her fists clenched. Memories of chains burned in her skin. The words, "I'll never be your pet," echoed in her mind. The commander raised his hand. Soldiers stepped forward, weapons ready. "Return to your place, girl," he ordered. "You belong to us, not to him." The human stepped forward, calm, as always. His blade was already in his hand, his voice steady. "She belongs to no one," the commander sneered. "You think you can protect her from us? You are only one man." He gestured. "Take her." Soldiers advanced. The girl's heart pounded. Her pride screamed at her to run, but her heart told her to stand. For too long, she had let others speak for her. Too long, she had hidden behind anger and fear. She stepped forward, her voice sharp as steel. "No." The soldiers froze. Her silver eyes blazed, her voice echoing across the valley. "I am not his pet. I am not your prisoner. I am not anyone's property." She raised her chin, her voice trembling but strong. "I choose where I stand, and I choose here, beside him." The commander's face twisted in anger. "Ungrateful wretch," he roared. "If you will not kneel, then you will die with him." The soldiers charged. The battle was chaos. Steel clashed. Screams filled the air. The human fought with precision, every strike cutting down another foe. But there were too many. The alien girl grabbed a fallen weapon, her hands trembling. For the first time since her capture, she fought not to prove her pride, but to protect someone else. Together they fought back to back, her blade clumsy at first, but her spirit unbreakable. His movement steady, his strength unyielding. Blood stained the grass. Shadows of death surrounded them, but neither stepped away. The commander himself entered the fight, his sword heavy, his strikes cruel. He lunged at the girl, his blade grazing her cheek. "You will kneel before me again," he snarled. But before he could strike again, the human blocked the blow. Sparks flew, steel rang. Their eyes locked. The commander's fury met the human's calm. With a final strike, the human disarmed him. The commander fell to the ground, his weapon clattering uselessly beside him. The alien girl stood over him, her chest heaving. The man who had chained her now looked small, pathetic. Her hand tightened on her blade. She could end him now. She could erase her shame with his blood, but when she looked at the human calm and steady beside her, she remembered his words. "You're not a pet. You're not nothing." She lowered her weapon, her voice cold, but clear. I will not kneel and I will not be your pet. She turned her back on the commander, choosing not revenge but freedom. The human nodded once, silent approval in his eyes. They left the valley together, the commander's shouts fading behind them. When night came, they sat by a fire once more. The stars stretched endless above. The girl turned to him, her voice soft but certain. Do you see now? I am not your pet. I am your equal. The human's lips curved just slightly, not quite a smile but close, his voice calm, steady as always. I never saw you as anything less. Her chest ached, not with pain, but with something new, something terrifying and beautiful, she whispered, almost afraid of the words. Then, let me walk with you. Not behind, not chained, but always beside. The firelight reflected in his eyes as he met her gaze. Then stay, he said simply. And for the first time, she didn't feel defiant, or broken, or chained. For the first time, she felt free. The proud alien girl who once swore she would never be a pet now stood taller, her spirit unshaken. Her story was no longer about defiance or pride. It was about choice, and she had chosen him, not as master, not as captor, but as something far greater and equal.